This is a 10-minute lecture about how to use transitions in your essays to make them flow more smoothly, paragraph to paragraph. And of course, this particular lecture keys very carefully to the previous lecture on paragraphs. Transitions essentially link ideas. An essay unfolds paragraph by paragraph, and there's one central idea, one central thought, one central point in each paragraph. So you need transitions to link these paragraphs so the reader can always see where you're going. Now, there are also another kind of transitions. Sometimes you use transitions within sentences or even within paragraphs to kind of link the sentences together to show the reader the flow within the actual paragraph. So this is going to show both kinds of transitions. And don't forget, there's two kinds. There's the kinds that link thoughts within a paragraph, and then there's the kinds that link paragraph to paragraph. They're not radically different. Sometimes they're just different words or phrases, actually. Transitions show the reader where you're going. They provide transitions between ideas, largely communicating with your reader. They help the reader understand your organization of your essay, and they give your reader some stepping stones so they can get through your essay kind of in a logical fashion. Very often, you write an essay in a logical fashion, okay? I mean, your thinking's logical, all right? It unfolds normally, so you don't often have to worry too much about organization as long as you don't wander off onto different topics or as long as you don't come back and repeat yourself. So what you do with transitions is you sort of just show the reader how each paragraph unfolds logically from the previous paragraph. It's showing the reader, not always telling the reader. You kind of give the reader these stepping stones to help them move from one paragraph to the next. Okay, there's some fancy names for transitions, and basically there are about four kinds. There's transitional tags, which come between paragraphs. There's paragraph hooks, which are very, very common. You probably learned about these in high school English. They're very, very effective, and I'll tell you about these in detail. There's also pronoun references. I'll explain these. And then there's something called parallelism, where one sentence is sort of parallel to the next sentence. They don't repeat each other, but they sort of replicate their form. I'll go into this in more detail in a second. Okay, transitional tags are very often just your little short words. They're called conjunctions, like and but, or nor, or yet, and or. Sometimes so is sometimes a word that you use. And it's like, you know, you're making this thought in a sentence, and then you kind of move on to the next sentence and say, on the other hand, or those kinds of words. And you see them all the time in other people's writing. So look at the examples in the textbook that I point out to you in the readings, all right? And then look for these little transitional elements, and you just see how it helps the reader, helps you move your thoughts from one point to the next point more clearly so that the reader can kind of see your logic. Very often to signal more complex ideas where you have sort of one comment that's going in one direction, and then you want to make a comment that goes in a different direction. You need to alert the reader that this is actually going to happen, that you're going in a different direction. So that's why you say however, or on the other hand, all right? If you're going to sort of repeat yourself and go the same direction again with a comment, with a point you want to make, you can say moreover, or nevertheless. These two things are kind of equal, all right? So it's these small words or small phrases that you're looking for that help the reader move from one point to the next, help them see more clearly how your logic is working. You can trust your logic, okay? The point is that you need to show the reader how you went from one point to the next. Okay, these next two slides are probably the most helpful, and I'll try to slow down a little bit, and you're probably going to want to come back to them often. Transitions help move readers from thought to thought, from sentence to sentence, paragraph to paragraph. So here's some actual kinds. If you want to show cause and effect, you can use these words. If you want to show comparisons, you can use these words or these phrases. If you want to show contrasts or exceptions, you use these words and phrases. So study this slide more slowly. You can pause this video, study this slide, okay? I'm going to go on to the next slide, which has a similar list on it. These are two very, very important slides and are going to help you a lot. Okay, here's how to show examples. Very often in your essays, I'm going to say something like, use more examples. Show the reader what you mean. Don't just tell them. Use examples from the text. Use examples from your research. When I say the text, whatever you're writing about, that's the text, okay? The thing that you're reading to write about. All right, so show some examples, and these transitional elements help you lead the reader to an example. You don't just plunk the example down. You use a transitional element to lead the reader to it. You want to show place or position in something you're writing. Here's some examples. If you want to show the sequence, now this is very common. You can always build an essay using sequence, all right? You move from one paragraph to the next. You can say, you know, in the first place, that's a paragraph. In the second place, so that's a second paragraph. Also, we could look at, that could be the third transition for the third paragraph, that kind of thing. So sequence is a very common way to write an essay, so be sure to look at these very carefully. You show time. That's another way to write an essay. That's also related to sequence. You know, something happened first, and it happened second, then it happened after that, and then it happened next, and it finally happened. And then last but not least, you want to signal that you're getting ready to summarize or do your conclusion. Don't say in conclusion. Don't do that, okay? Your W131 instructors, W233 instructors will always mark you off for that. It's considered trite. So instead, you have these phrases that you can use to show a summary or conclusion. Word of caution, you have to be pretty skillful. Don't just drop these transitional expressions at the beginning of a sentence, at the beginning of a paragraph, thinking you're going to get away with it. You have to usually, particularly for a topic sentence, the sentence that begins the paragraph, you generally have to use a fairly complex transitional element. You don't always need transitions at the beginning of a paragraph, but you often need something complex. You can't just say also. You can say in addition to such and such, this is also the case. You can do that, but you can't just say also. That won't work. That won't work at the beginning of a new paragraph. So be very, very careful. Go back and read your essay after you've inserted transitions and say, well, you know, is that transition complex enough to really show the reader? Does it sound natural? Read it out loud. If it sounds natural, you're okay. If it sounds forced, you got to think about it again. The really neat thing is paragraph hooks, all right? And what paragraph hooks are, and I'm going to show you an example here at the end, is they simply are words in the previous paragraph that link to words in the next paragraph. Usually they come near the end of the paragraph and some strong keywords, and then you use similar keywords, similar words, similar phrases at the beginning of the next paragraph. Not always exactly alike, but sometimes they can be the same. And the reader sees that these two paragraphs are connected, okay? So let me show you an example here. Okay, right here. You see this. You see these two paragraphs, and I've circled the keywords. And if you read them, you can see how those keywords link to each other, how they pull the two paragraphs together. That is really cool. So you have some keywords at the end of the paragraph, and then you repeat those same words or similar words. Don't let it sound repetitious, okay? I mean, be careful. Read it out loud. If it sounds good, it is good. All right? And that way, that links the two paragraphs together. And that way, the readers can see these two paragraphs are connected. You know, I keep saying that you're going to divide up your essay in points, and each point's going to be a paragraph. Well, sometimes your points are similar. Sometimes they're kind of repetitious, which is fine, okay? Because sometimes you're illustrating a point, and you need several paragraphs to do that. Or sometimes you're emphasizing a point, and you need several paragraphs to do that. That's always okay. But just make sure those are linked so the reader can see the linkage, all right? And that's what these paragraph hooks do. Okay, there's also material in the textbook about transitions. Go to the index, look at transitions there. I'll be grading your Unit 1 essays, among other things, on how skillfully you use transitions.